All right, welcome back to Hey You're Brave, and I am so excited that we have Dr. Faye Kazi here with us today. I am so blessed by the work that you are doing, Faye. I love what you're
You.
sharing on social media. It's so balanced, so rooted in scientific evidence and backed by biblical principles, and I think that's such a beautiful dynamic and one that's pretty rare. I love your insights, so thank you so much for joining us. I know that everyone's going to be blessed today. Could you tell us a little bit about what you do in your practice?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Sarah. And I do enjoy the content that you put out as well. And I know that you're filling an important gap with mental health as well. So thank you for all that you do. So a little bit about me. So my name is Faye Kazi. I have a background in nutrition and dietetics. And I have a PhD in rehabilitation science. I guess I would call myself a researcher. And I'm a published author. I also published a cookbook, science and scientific articles. What I'm doing right now is more metabolic health private practice. That's kind of where I feel the most drawn because I think that's where we see the biggest bang for the buck in terms of nutritional interventions. A lot of other things are harder to control with diet and lifestyle, but this has been such a key area that I just feel like it's so much more interesting for me to want to work with people who want to like improve their health and actually see outcomes. So that's been an interest, and of course, women's health and the cycle has been very interesting. I did just publish a short manuscript. It was a self-directed case report, and it was published in the IMCJ journal just last month.
Awesome.
I'm happy to share that, by the way, with your audience because it's
Yes.
related to
Please
the
send me the
topic.
link and I'll put it in the description.
Yeah, it's related to the topic we'll be talking about. We can talk about that later. But aside from that, I'm also a mom to two little ones. They drive me crazy, and a very ambitious husband that is kind of a workaholic, and we kind of feed off of each other's energy. So we're both workaholics, not alcoholics.
I feel
So
you. That's kind of like D
yeah,
and I too.
yeah. Okay, so that's kind of like the overview. I mean, feel free to ask me any.
Yeah. That's so helpful. I love it. For anybody who doesn't know, at university, I studied clinical nutrition and exercise physiology. But through my healing journey after a crazy abusive relationship, I really wanted to help people have that experience of the gospel and mental health and how much healing there is. And I just love that through this podcast, you're going to be able to have a holistic idea of how you can nourish and help your body. And I want to bring in maybe like a few exercise components too as we're talking. But let's get started. Let's jump right in. I want to talk today about cycle syncing. And cycle syncing is such a powerful way to align ourselves with what's happening in our body and to stop fighting our system and what's going on as a woman. I think in society, we're so used to the 24-hour cycle. I personally think that was by design for the male body. But us women, we really have this ebb and flow throughout a cycle of about 28 days. And we can work with that. We can work with that and actually have great productivity. Our motivation can be in alignment with that. And we can actually optimize our health through nutrition. And I love that you're going to come in with all of that side of things, Faye, and tell us, lifestyle habits and actually nutrition things as well, what can be helpful for each phase of the cycle. Now, when it comes to cycle syncing, some people like to compare it to the seasons, and I think they align pretty well. And the first part of that cycle is the menstruation part, and it's compared to the inner winter. So tell me a little bit, Faye, about what nutrients can support the body while we're in that phase of inner winter, and what lifestyle things have been beneficial for you during this time.
Yeah, so inner winter or menstruation is probably the less trickier space in comparison to the period just before it, but we can talk about that
Yes.
also later on. But I mean, during this time when your body so your body was prepping for the possibility of an implantation of another human. So it's a very intense physiological process, and I think it's very much taken for granted because women have been going through this for thousands of years. So I did want to just take a second to lift the emotional component that's there, that this is not an easy process on the body. It is when an implantation doesn't happen, it basically is like, oh, okay, let's tear down the building. So to think that this is something that is light and fluffy and everyone goes through it and it's not a big deal, even if you're not going through emotional dysregulation, as most women, a lot of women do, you're still experiencing a tremendous physiological, I guess, a physiological challenge just to
Yeah.
reset that space. So yes, key nutrients are important. You really want to focus on iron. So iron dense foods during the time of menstruation in order to support the loss that you're experiencing, even though it was just built in that space, but it's still loss. So iron heavy foods are important. Mostly if you're a heavy bleeder. If you're not a heavy bleeder, you don't necessarily need lots of iron. Like you don't have to be on an iron supplement per se, but you do need like
Hmm.
iron-rich foods. So if you consume meat, if you're like, let's say not a vegetarian, then it would be the red meats would be important during this time. If you are a vegetarian, you want green leafy veggies, you want lentils, you want the natural foods. And I would highly recommend like you don't, because a lot of people say, okay, well, there is, products that say that they contain iron. I'm just going to eat lots of that. I would just go with natural containing whole food examples.
Hmm.
Another important thing is magnesium during this time.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and actually everyone should be on a magnesium supplement daily, and this includes men and women. Magnesium has very healing properties. It calms the tension in the muscles, the cramping, all those things. So that's a good supplement to have, definitely. I recommend
What form would you recommend? Because there's
a
different ones that.
complex. A
Okay.
complex. So it's going to have at least 5 or 6 variations of magnesium in it. The magnesium citrate is probably, and the glycinate are probably the most important ones. So you just want to double check if the complex has that. I wouldn't just
Hmm.
get an isolated magnesium, get the complex. There is a good one that I get through Amazon. Just a random one that I came across that had all the things. I think it's called Magnesium Breakthrough. So if you
Ooh,
guys want to
okay.
check that out, yeah, Magnesium Breakthrough.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. It helps to, the body is also going through muscular stress during this time. So it calms down the muscles. It's very important for muscle health. And it's actually ideal to
Mm,
take it in the evening, not during the day, because it kind of makes you calmer. Um, you probably want to capitalize on that calmness later in the evening, not like during the day. It's not to say it makes you tired. It
that's
just,
true.
yeah, it calms you down. So ideal to have in the evening. The next really important one is the omega-3s. So
Ooh,
we're
okay.
really short on, I guess a lot of people, well, before I go there, let's go back to the magnesium. Most women are deficient in magnesium. So, I want to be careful when I say, hey, supplement, but supplementation for magnesium is probably ideal for most women because most all of us are deficient. Um,
That's true.
so it's probably important to take that. Omega-3s, fish oils. So if you're not a vegetarian, then if you're having a good amount of salmon, sardines, tuna, these sorts of fatty fishes, mostly salmon would be like the better alternative. Um,
Mm,
so not alternative, but it would be like the fattier the fish, the more omega-3 you're going to get. You can still get omega-3s
yeah.
from like plant-based foods like flaxseed and chia seeds and things like that. So, but I would even recommend if a person is vegetarian and they're a woman and they have skin and hair and they're really concerned about these things in addition to the hormonal
Hmm.
implications, just be on a fish oil supplement,
Oh,
you
love
know?
it.
Yeah. So that one and then protein. Protein, do not skip the protein during this time. Remember, we are tearing down, but in the process of tearing down, we need to build up. So protein is probably very important. So that's the interwinter menstruation. I would say, what else? And just warm fluids and mineral support during this time.
Yes. So nourishing. I love
Yeah.
that. That's
Teas,
so
broths,
helpful.
all the things.
Okay, yeah. Is there any tea that you recommend?
So I'm kind of a boring person when it comes to the teas. I just go with a mint tea or a chamomile, just anything that's
I love
calming and
chamomile.
herbal.
Yes.
And I'm Middle Eastern, Lebanese, and like mint tea is like the tea that we drink. And
Yeah.
it's very high in
Awesome.
antioxidants as well, because you want to think anti-inflammation during this time.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, that sounds so good in terms of the side of nutrition. And yes, I think we are so deficient, and that's why there's so many symptoms around menstruation, is because there's so much deficiency happening and not proper support for, what's happening actually at that time with the body. During this time as well is a beautiful time for reflection, and that really does nourish the nervous system during this time because, again, like you said, there's a tear down process happening. There's a lot happening inside the body that needs nourishment, that needs attention, and it's not the time to be like that go-getter woman doing your hit fitness class. It's really the time to be nourishing, do slow movements, even Pilates, yoga-like practices. I don't do anything that's in the side of the spiritual side of yoga or whatnot, but I do recommend nourishing, stretching, and just moving your body in a way that feels good during this time and not pushing it past any limits because I think for most of us, our energy is pretty low during this time too.
Yeah,
And I know that I think you've mentioned that you're on a nervous system
reset.
journey of sorts. Is there
Yeah.
anything that you found helpful during this time in that space?
In relation to the cycle,
Yes. Or overall,
okay.
anything that you found that supported you in your lifestyle?
Yeah. So you know what's interesting about nervous system regulation is that people aren't the same. As similarly to how we all don't, as women, we don't respond the same to our menstrual cycle. Everyone has a variation to, it's not like everyone has PMS and PMDD or everyone has seamless
Right.
cycles. It's very nuanced. And so one thing that I want, at least I guess your listeners to understand is that there's no right way of doing any of this. And I wish there was because it
Mm-hmm.
would have been a very easy protocol to just copy paste on everyone. But I think as I continue to learn and explore and study and experiment, and also work with my clients, I feel like it's the same message that I'm continually receiving. Data is interpreted differently by most bodies. There is generalized data that, yes, can be standardized across most people, like, hey, you don't get enough sleep, you're
Yeah.
probably going to crash. You don't drink enough water,
Yeah.
you're going to get dehydrated. You don't eat enough protein, you might develop some metabolic issues. So that's pretty clear. I think the nuance is that a lot of people expect that it's a one size fits all. So I want to protect people from that and clarify what might be working for me might work for you, and there's a large percentage of chance that it won't. And I feel like I
Yeah.
have to set that premise, especially when I'm working with clients. Like I have a client that I'm going to get to your question about the nervous system, but this is important to
Yeah. Go ahead.
specify.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a client who reached out to me for a ketogenic diet therapy. However, she has bipolar, she's diagnosed
Mm.
bipolar 1. And this is very tricky because she learned about the metabolic, that there's very skim research. There is research, clinical research on this, but it's not robust yet. And she came across it and it's like, oh, this is going to help fix my bipolarism. So I spent
Okay.
probably an
Mm.
hour and a half for the initial consult just explaining to her, this might not work for you. And that's okay. So
Mm-hmm.
it could work, but it also might not. And that's not clinically discouraging. It's just the truth. So about the nervous system, to go back to that. Um, so one thing for me that I personally recognize to help regulate my nervous system is meditation. When I say meditation, it's not in the woo-woo Eastern medicine type of meditation. It's simply focusing on one biblical concept for me that brings me a sense of peace and centeredness because we all have monkey brain. Monkey brain is
Yeah.
just we are processing 70,000 thoughts a day. It's
Mm-hmm.
chaotic in the brain. So an exercise of simply concentrating on one item. For me, it's always visualizing Christ on a beach
Love
walking
that.
without talking, just looking at him, imagining his features, the purity in his face, nail prints in his hands, his feet, and just focusing on it for 10 to 20 minutes. And for me, it has been the most therapeutic nervous system regulating exercise.
Mm.
Aside from
So
breathing,
good.
breathing is also
Yeah.
good. but it surprised me. I was expecting to come up with more like scientific explanations of nervous system regulation, the breathing exercises and all that. But I think part of the reason why we're stressed is because our minds are overloaded with data and most of it is negative.
Oh,
And
100%. Yeah.
and I personally have gone on a social media fast. Not that I'm not active, but I don't scroll anymore. And it's been about
Yes.
2 weeks on this rhythm. I just cannot continue. Ever since the Epstein files came out and I saw a few
Mm.
mentally shocking things, I felt a decrease in my spiritual energy just from being and it was innocent. I
Yeah.
was just scrolling.
Hmm.
But this is what's hot right now, and this is what most of our feeds are getting. So, what I'm trying to say is that this excess of negative energy, because we're energetic beings, this is not woo Eastern science. This is how God
Right.
created us. We all
Yeah.
have a soul, we all have energy, we all have aura. This is not evil, this is just truth.
Yep.
And it can directly get impacted by what we perceive with our eyes. The Bible also talks
Mm-hmm.
about the eyes are um, is it the eyes are the window to the soul? Is that a biblical verse? Why am I blanking on that?
I don't know if it's a biblical verse, but I 100% agree with that idea
Oh,
that what
yeah.
we're taking in is going to affect how
Yeah.
we think and we feel.
Yeah, I actually want to find it now because it's like it's either the eyes are the it's either the whatever we see brings light into our life or I have to find but it is a biblical principle that well and I don't even know if this is a Bible verse by beholding you become changed or if that was a
Yes.
prophecy text I can't remember
I think
but the
it's a
point
Bible
is
verse.
okay.
And of
So,
course, in Philippians, it talks about, to think on positive things, on good reports. And
yeah.
when we're not, through social media, taking in all of this negativity, it
Mhm.
really does dysregulate us in an unnecessary way. I don't think we were designed to take in so much negative information and to know about everything that's happening in the world.
Mhm. And that for me has probably been that plus meditation has been the uh, surprisingly biggest impacts. I'm not
Mm.
cured. I still have
Yeah.
major stress situations that I'm not good at handling, and I'm not afraid to admit that. But I think it's a good starting point
Yeah.
right now. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so it's funny when you mention about Jesus walking on the beach because that is where I go with my meditation as well. And
Mhm.
we do have our mirror neurons. So as we're visualizing things, our nervous system is actually experiencing it as if it was happening in that moment. And I think that's so powerful and a practice that can be very helpful during that menstruation side of things, or even as we're coming into it, to be able to slow down and really be able to have a mental practice that's feeding our body essentially and putting our nervous system state into a place of peaceful rest, which is what's needed during that time.
Mhm.
So let's shift to the follicular side of things. We're preparing for ovulation during that time and ovulation. We could even lump those together. What do you recommend in terms of nutritional support? I think probably women feel the best during this time, most energy, the most lively, the most social, even. What
Mhm.
have you found helpful for this area in terms of nutrition and any lifestyle things?
Yeah, so definitely, I guess it would be described as the sexy time of the month for the woman because
Yeah.
she's feeling it. She wants to produce babies. She has that urge, and she feels more attractive. Her skin's glowing, and you can definitely know as a woman throughout the month when you're glowing and when you're not. And it's usually during ovulation that we feel the most attractive. And that's all
Yeah,
natural.
so
It's
true.
a built-in system that God created for us to have. So nutritionally, you want to understand first that what's happening is that estrogen is going up during this time of the month.
Hmm.
It was pretty low before in winter, and now estrogen has gone up. So with that, to support that, you want to think more along the lines of gut health during this time
Ooh, okay.
because you want to maximize the energetic powers that you're receiving from your nourishment during this time. So definitely the lean proteins are important. Lean protein. Think I just centered protein centered meals during this time because you are building a lot during this time. Um, in order for possibility of an implantation that will come later. So you're ovulating, you're releasing eggs, at any time it might get fertilized. So let's say it got fertilized 3 or 4 days later. So during ovulation, if you were to, get pregnant, let's say, building is so important. So lots of the
Hmm.
protein is probably the key thing. And so if a person's a vegetarian, they want to think legumes, nuts, and seeds, dominant. That should be the dominant part of your meal, not the grains, not even the quinoa or the definitely not the like rices and the breads and these sorts of things because or the cereals because those are carb heavy and carb heavy is just going to spike
Hmm.
your insulin. So you want to be able to jack it and we'll talk about that actually later on in the other cycle, in the other part of
Okay.
the cycle. So, I think fermented foods are also really good to consider. Yogurt is also good. This is all going to help with gut diversity and gut health. Definitely, again, with the leafy greens, fresh, lighter meals is good. You want to think about berries, focus your fruit intake to be more of the berries rather than the glycemic high foods like bananas and apples, because those are okay. It's just that they're higher carb and lower nutrition versus berries are just concentrated antioxidant bombs, and they have less
Hmm.
carbohydrates attached to it. And I just want to clarify, it's not that I'm not trying to say carbs is the enemy. It's just that during this time, the most important thing is blood sugar regulation throughout the
Yeah,
whole.
that's so important.
Yeah, because this is
Hmm.
going to influence how you're going to respond hormonally. If your blood sugar levels are out of control, that is exactly what's going to cause the extreme emotional dysregulation that we feel because hormones are moving during the cycle. They are either going to move in extreme ways, volatility, or they will move steadily. If you're a person who your hormones move steadily, the blood sugar level, spiking, that's going to exaggerate whatever the hormones are doing. So if you're smooth
Wow. Yeah.
sailing, but your blood sugar is a little cuckoo or a little crazy, it's going to influence the way your hormones are going to be moving. So they can actually move a bit more extreme as it responds to the blood sugar. So you want to think about your body, your physiology doesn't like volatile blood sugar. It likes
Yes. And I think
steady sugar.
people focus so much on carbs, and especially they're like, "Oh, I need carbs for energy." But really if you're not supporting yourself with nutrient density and also being able to say, "Okay, I need protein as fuel as well." And if I'm building my body, especially during this time, it's great to do a lot of cardio, heavy lifting, things like that. Your body's not going to appreciate a big carb load, right? You
No,
need that fat, that protein as well. And I think that's such a paradigm shift for people. And I love that you're talking more about this on your page. You guys, she has great ideas for meals. And I would love if you guys go and check that out because it has helped me so much in terms of, okay, how do I increase my protein? That's been such a hard thing as a vegetarian. I'm no longer a vegetarian right now, especially because postpartum, I've needed so much more help. But you're so right about the blood sugar crashes and the mood and how they relate because postpartum, I've experienced these surges of like rage. And I was like, why is this happening? I'm not an angry person and by
mhm.
personality. And I discovered like every time I was skipping food or just like frantically running around the house with my baby and forgetting to eat, the rage would come on. And I was like, oh, Lord have mercy. I need to
Mhm.
like get things in check so that I'm not, this person that I don't even know of sorts. But what has changed is increasing the protein and adding those healthy fats in. And that's been a game changer. I've seen that rage like drop dramatically since I've been doing that.
Amazing. Yeah, and so that's really key what you're saying there. It's not so much the problem is carbs, it's the problem is glucose instability.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So I like to think about it as whether it's too much carbs or too little carbs, you're going to experience hormonal dysregulation. It needs
Hmm.
to be stable. And so what proteins and fats from whole food sources can do with carbs or glucose is it puts a jacket on it. And that's what I like to tell my clients to help them understand this visually. It puts a jacket on. So glucose is this really loud, energetic, let's say, person in the body, and it just goes and it hypes up the rooms, and it just, that's what it's designed to do. Sometimes it's too much for the introverted parts of our body. It's like, whoa, the extrovert is here, and it's just too much. It's
Yeah.
too bright. So
I
what
love that.
yeah, so what the fat and the glucose does, sorry, fat and the protein does, it puts a jacket on it and calms it down. It doesn't
Mhm.
remove or eliminate it because you're not supposed to. Your brain doesn't produce its own glucose. It's depending on the body to
Right.
come and provide that for you. So that jacket is what's going to say, okay, it's there, it's doing what it needs to do, and it's a bit more quiet. It's like, cool. Now you're giving
Mm.
us what we need. You're not coming in the form of a crazy, like a person can have a chocolate chip cookie, and they will notice this. As soon as they had that chocolate chip cookie, they went into a spiral or a rage or a depressive episode or suddenly had anxiety spike. That's because blood sugar spiked.
Wow.
Blood sugar spiked.
Mm.
That blood sugar spike took that estrogen or that progesterone and exaggerated it. And when you have exaggerated progesterone, usually when it's too high, it's supposed to go high in your cycle, but when it's too high and in response to the blood sugar spike that you got, it can cause fatigue and depression and irritability. And the same nuance is that if it was too low, if, for example, there you went fasting, you skipped a
Ooh.
meal, which we do, which by the way, I stopped completely because it didn't work for my body. It works for some
Yeah.
women, did not work for me. It completely destabilized me. There's no
Especially if your
food.
nervous system is in fight or flight or any
Right.
dysregulation, fasting is going to put you in survival mode and it's not helpful.
Right. And here's what fasting can do for some women, though. It also increases your cortisol. When cortisol
Mm-hmm.
goes up, fight or flight, immediately puts your
Yep.
whole body into stress. So the takeaway from this is the simple both spikes and crashes are stressful for the body.
Yes.
They're stressful. So how do we keep our body in sync with a stable blood sugar level so that we can help support our hormones be stable? It's simply every 3 to 4 hours, you have a good meal that is protein
Mm-hmm.
centered and that is jacketing whatever glucose that you're ingesting. That's a simple, that's the simplest way to
I
look at it.
love the idea. I love this idea that you're putting forth, and it's actually so backed by science too. It's just like how we work at a physiological level. But I think that so many people wonder, like, why am I having these weird mood shifts? And throughout my cycle, then like my mood crashes, and like, why am I having anxiety, the depression stuff? And a lot of the times it is because of the thoughts that we're internalizing and the experiences and the woundedness that we have. But there's also this large component of what's happening on a nutritional level and how we're supporting our body, because it is so true that if there's deficiencies happening, if we're not supporting our body well, our mood is going to be affected. And I think it's so empowering to know these details that you're talking about, because all of a sudden, like a lot of these things can just be wiped away, right? And for me personally, I was like, oh no, am I becoming like an angry person? I don't want to be like an angry mother. But really, all that was happening was just there was a gap in my nutrition. And
Mhm.
how freeing and empowering it is to know that like those things can just fall off the map immediately and you can be back to who you are. And specifically, I think during this luteal phase, as we're coming into menstruation, there's a lot of mood shifts. And clients talk to me all the time. I'm saying, like, I'm experiencing depression during this time. I'm feeling a lot of anxiety, irritability, and a lot of mental health crashes during that time. Talk to me about what's helpful in terms of supporting the body. And I know you've done some research, I believe, on PMDD. If you want to
Mhm.
go into that a little bit too and what's helpful, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so were you referring to follicular or luteal right
To
now?
the luteal side.
Okay, yeah. So with luteal, this is the critical space. This is where a woman who has PMS or PMDD will make or break her, literally. So to be very transparent with your audience, I am diagnosed with PMDD. I was twice diagnosed, once by a psychiatrist and once by a OBGYN. And I've had it for years. I had been undiagnosed for probably 7 years. I just
Wow.
didn't really get it officially diagnosed, but it wasn't until last year that I got it officially diagnosed. And so I'm not one person to like identify. It's not my identity at all, but I did take that to heart in the sense of the way I approached it research wise. So being a woman who has PMDD, it's basically PMS, but the extreme version of it.
Mm.
So even though my diet is very clean and very protein focused and all the things. The diet was buckled up, but how could my diet be buckled up and yet I'm still experiencing these wild PMDD symptoms? The symptoms basically would express themselves in as soon as I would hit luteal for about 8 to 10 days, I am so down and so
Wow.
physiologically and
Tough.
mentally um, distraught, like no productivity, very high anxiety, very depressed. And as someone who is, a woman of faith, this is very disheartening because you're like, well, this is very inconvenient. I'm
Yeah. Where's my
trying.
joy of the Lord?
Right, right. I'm here trying to produce. I'm trying to produce well. I'm trying to be a loving mother. I'm trying to support my husband. I'm trying to support
Mm,
my community. I'm trying to support my clients. And then I'm literally crashing for an entire week. Like this
oh,
is
that's
such
wild.
a blow to my lifestyle. And so I don't want to
Mm,
spend too much time expressing how difficult it is, but whoever has PMS will know it's hard. But PMDD is 10 times harder on the mind
mm.
and on the emotions. And physiologically. Like you literally feel like you're carrying 25 extra pounds on your body during this
Wow.
phase.
And it's not like a thought you can fix or anything like that either. It's
No,
hormonal.
and it's cyclical. As soon as, I mean, it became very clear to me 3 weeks out of the month, I'm wonderful. Why is it this one week I enter such a dark space? And,
Mm,
it's weird because you want to assume that as a woman of faith, this is probably a spiritual battle, da, 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 da. But then when you look at the nuance of the biology, the physiology, it becomes less spiritual and more biological. But if that's the case, then, you know, is it possible for us to fix it at a biological level, not to be healed from it? So if for your audience who don't know, PMDD is basically an unnatural reaction. This is what happens with someone who has PMDD. They have an it's not even understood by clinical research. We just
mm.
don't see serotonin during that time of the month like other women who don't have PMDD. The serotonin, which is
Wow.
your
That's so
happy
interesting.
hormone, so it's the hormone that
Yeah.
regulates, I mean, there is serotonin that gets excreted in the gut. It's different than the serotonin that enters your brain. Just want to clear that nuance because there's so many uneducated influencers. I don't know. I've seen a couple of these people who are trying to sell their probiotics and whatever, and they'll say, "Oh, your gut
No.
produces 90% of the serotonin. Therefore, you have to really get this probiotic so that you can be happy and da 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 da." It has not the serotonin in the gut is for motility issues. It regulates gut related issues. It has nothing to. It doesn't even pass the blood-brain barrier, by the way. The serotonin
Wow.
produced in your gut. The only thing that
Don't be fooled, you all.
the only thing that passes your blood-brain barrier is tryptophan, which is a precursor to serotonin.
Mm,
Okay? So basically, somehow I came across some research and then said, okay, I need to try this. And I found the highest quality tryptophan available, which is whey protein concentrate. Um,
wow.
not isolate, whey protein concentrate, a grass-fed organic version. It was pretty expensive, but I'm like, I'm gonna try this. And I had it daily, 8 days before menstruation. Basically, as soon as I hit my luteal phase where I know I'm sensitive. So,
Mm,
so the first month blew me away because I was like, okay, this is probably just I'm reacting to the it's probably just, a placebo effect. I just integrated this new item into my diet lifestyle. I have all this like, expectations. How is it that I had almost 90% reduction in symptoms?
wow. That's
So
incredible.
I gave myself the benefit of the doubt as a clinical researcher, and I've done for my PhD, I did a dissertation where I worked with human people. I didn't just get rats or whatever. I had to, this was my prerogative. I must work with humans. But 3 months clinical trial is like the least you can do to try to establish some clinical significance. The least you could do. So I said, okay, I'm going to do 3 months of this. I already had a baseline. Baseline is 100% terrible symptoms. that are all these depressive symptoms that you can look up to see exactly what they are. First month, like 90% remission of symptoms. Okay, well, that's strange.
Wow.
Second month, I do the exact same protocol. Nothing else changes in my diet. It's 5 tablespoons of whey protein concentrate. It's about 20 to 30 grams of the protein in a fruit-rich smoothie because carbohydrates in the right food complex actually assist the whole production of the serotonin in the brain. So this is a very
Mm-hmm.
high tryptophan containing food mixed with fruits, like could be berries, it could be a small piece of banana, just some sort of dates. You could throw dates in your smoothie. And then 8 days before menstruation, every day. Again, 85%, maybe it was 90% reduction in symptoms for the second month. And then
That's incredible.
follow the same protocol for the third month and took a deep breath. I'm like, okay, this is not possible that something as simple as a food matrix could have played such a significant role. So you
Wow.
might be saying this is totally anecdotal, it happened with one person, da 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 da. There is research about tryptophan supplements having this sort, just the supplement. It's basically tryptophan that's extracted, put in a pill, and you take it, and it has the same kind of
Hmm.
implication. So this tells us that even though there's a biological hiccup with someone who has PMDD or PMS that's undiagnosed, but it's actually PMDD, it's it can be not fixed, but alleviated biochemically because it's a biochemical disorder. How do we know this? Because 90% or 70% of the month you're fine. So that
Yeah.
tells us that if that's the case, then as soon as your biochemical status regulates again, you're fine. Now, if this is consistent throughout the month, it's a completely different story, and it's not even PMDD, it's something else. You see
Right.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So,
Because it's only during that time. And
yeah,
I want everyone who maybe got a little bit lost with all of the details of what's happening in the body. I think the idea that you're putting forth here is that you're giving your body the building blocks that it needs in order to make serotonin, correct?
correct, correct.
Okay. And
Because
so,
it's not the serotonin. So let me back up. It's not the building block. Okay. So everyone has the ability to make serotonin,
mhm,
but people who have PMDD during a specific time, because of the hormones shifting and changing, in response to the shifting and changing of hormones, these specific women, for some reason that is undefined and unknown for now, we cannot produce enough of the serotonin to support the brain to protect us from these highly depressive symptoms. As soon as
got
we
you. Yeah.
provide it with a flush of tryptophan, which passes the
Hmm.
blood-brain barrier, it can account for that nuanced gap for that limited period of time to help you produce sufficient serotonin to at least not fall into that depressive state. So
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
more like protection. It's more like, I
Hmm.
guess, prevention of it
Hmm.
leading you. It's more of like, okay, this is what you are all of the month. We're going to continue now because we have the support. So now you can be this
Yes.
way
That
throughout the
makes
whole
sense.
month because yeah,
Hmm.
it's an unknown response to the changes of the hormones. So it's a cascade. It's not, so yeah,
Right.
just wanted to clarify that nuance if it's clear.
Yeah, that's so helpful. I think it is clear. And what else would you say in terms of kind of the anxiety that comes a low mood and even low energy during this time? Would you say like the same kind of idea of the proteins and the fats and right amount of carbs and things like that is supportive during this time in addition?
It's always going to be supportive throughout the month. But you want to be able to just overall adjust your calories and understand you're going to need more calories during luteal as well. So you want to think
Yeah.
100 to 300 calories more because your metabolism goes up during luteal.
Yeah.
So the body's
Hmm.
preparing for a potential
All the
pregnancy.
cravings come out.
Correct. Yeah, you will notice a higher desire for carbs, usually not healthy carbs too, just as you know. But if you're properly supported with enough protein, it will help to offset some of those urges. But you want to add calories intentionally. So if you normally have like, some like let's say eggs, sweet potato, and that's like my favorite thing to go to for breakfast, like eggs, sweet potato.
Yes, so
Instead
good.
of having 2 eggs, maybe have 3 during this time. That's okay. You don't want to worry about, oh, I'm going to gain weight because I'm having more calories. You're going to burn all that really quickly because your metabolism has gone up anyways.
Mm.
So you want to increase the protein slightly. I think that would help offset. And then you don't want to cut your carbs during this time. Definitely don't recommend having frosted flakes for breakfast, but if you're going to have a carbohydrate, yeah, let it be a high quality carb. Sweet potato. Even potatoes are better than like some sort of cereal.
Mm.
You could have oatmeal as long. This is what I recommend for women. Don't just have oatmeal flat. Mix egg whites into the oatmeal to offset the sugar spike that you would get from it. And it actually tastes really
So
good. You can't
good.
even feel it. It just makes it more
Yes.
creamy. You just have to mix it really well as it's cooking. And it makes it creamy. And then top with berries, nuts, and seeds. And there you have a perfect complex. You have carbs, but you also
Wow.
have lots of protein and you have healthy fats. And that becomes a really
So
perfect
easy.
breakfast. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I would say if you do get a craving, just be fully aware that the craving will be that the blood sugar instability that would result from the craving is going to amplify cravings further.
Oh
So
my. Yeah.
if you really want to crave something, do it smart. You crave the chocolate chip cookie, then by all means have a quarter cup of Greek yogurt after it
Yeah.
because
That's awesome.
that will offset the sugar spike, which will protect you from
Hmm.
responding poorly or exaggerating the hormonal response.
I love that you're saying you don't have to like eliminate it completely if that's something that you really
No,
need in the moment,
just do it
but just
correctly.
pair it. Yeah.
Yeah. Or take half of it instead of eating all at once, take half of it and have either a
So
handful of
good.
nuts with it or a quarter cup of Greek yogurt. I know that doesn't sound good, but it will offset the spiral that will happen.
I love that. So good. Thank you so much for sharing all of that information, Faye. I think that's been so helpful for everyone listening. And I will just tie in during this luteal phase, what can be really helpful is signaling safety to your nervous system so that your body feels safe to be able to kind of let go and, get rid of what that all that's built up inside. And I think the body really does need to feel safe and calm as we go into it. And I've seen such a shift for myself in terms of the pain and the inflammation that has decreased if I'm preparing beforehand, and it leads to a much easier menstruation. I found that even doing earthing, like bare feet on the ground or on an earthing mat, has taken my cramps down, the pain of the cramps down significantly. I would say at least 80% or sometimes even gone completely. And so if you're able to say, okay, I'm signaling safety to the nervous system, I'm providing the nutritional support for my body on these different phases of the cycle, and I'm able to lower inflammation. Oh my gosh, I think that is going to revolutionize the way that you experience your cycle and how you feel in your body. And I think that that's so important because, again, like as women and especially boss babes, if you want to call it that, or go-getters, we tend to push hard throughout the whole entire cycle, but we don't give our bodies what it needs in order to meet that demand, right? And so I love the work that you're doing, Faye. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your expertise. And I know that many women will be blessed by this. And I hope that you guys implement these different factors and that you guys can be feeling so much better and that your minds, your spirits, and your bodies will be energized for this earth journey. Thank you so much, Faye.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Bye.